You won't believe what just happened to one of hip-hop's most famous families. It started like any other day, cameras flashing, music playing, life moving as usual. But then, without warning, the world of the Harris family turned into something no one could have imagined. The rapper known for his confidence, his power, his words, T.I. found himself standing in silence, staring through the cold glass of a hospital ICU. Because behind that glass was his son, King Harris, fighting for his life. His body still, his face pale, machines breathing for him. Tiny stood beside T.I., tears rolling down her face as the sound of steady beeps filled the room. And in that moment, fame didn't matter, money didn't matter, only the sound of that fragile heartbeat did. But this wasn't just an accident. This was something darker, something planned. And as whispers spread, it became clear, this was only the beginning. You see, King Harris had always been the wild one. The one who grew up in the shadow of fame but still tried to carve his own path. He had fire, sometimes too much of it, but he was also smart, restless, and misunderstood. People saw the attitude but not the pain behind it. And recently he'd found himself in a place no one thought he'd end up, behind bars. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, just a short sentence, a chance to reset. But inside those prison walls, something changed. And what happened next would shatter his family in ways the world wasn't ready to see. The night of the incident began quietly. According to reports, King had been keeping to himself that evening. He wasn't fighting, he wasn't loud, he'd asked for space. He wanted to think, maybe reflect, maybe plan his next move. But minutes later, chaos broke out. Guards said they heard shouting, alarms blared through the halls. And when the noise finally stopped, King Harris was found on the floor, barely breathing. Doctors rushed him to the hospital, but something about the attack didn't add up. The wounds were too deliberate, too targeted. This wasn't a brawl, it was an execution. And here's where things turned chilling. The prison cameras that record every corner, every second, had gone dark that night. Not a single clip survived, as if someone knew exactly what was about to happen. And Tiny arrived at the hospital. They weren't the music power couple the world knew. They were just two broken parents, begging their son to stay alive. Reporters caught T.I. outside the ICU, whispering, "I don't care about justice. I just want my boy to live." It was a cry that sent chills across social media, because beneath those words was something deeper, fear. Did he already know this wasn't random? Did he know who did it? And then came the nurse's leaked audio. A quiet voice saying, "This wasn't random. Someone wanted him gone." That one sentence set the entire world on fire. What had happened inside those prison walls? And why was there no footage to prove it? By morning, the hospital became the center of the storm. Fans gathered outside holding candles, chanting King's name. News channels camped outside. Social media turned into a war zone of theories, revenge, conspiracy, betrayal. And inside that ICU, the beeping monitors sounded like a countdown to the truth. Doctors said his injuries were critical, blunt trauma to the skull, deep internal bleeding, swelling in the brain. They said his body was strong, but his mind was slipping away. Tiny collapsed in the hallway when she heard the words unstable. T.I. stood silent, his hands shaking, his eyes red but dry. He had no tears left, only rage. And just when people thought it couldn't get worse, another revelation hit. A prison employee anonymously confessed that guards were ordered to stay back minutes before the fight began. The internet erupted. Why would guards be told to stand down right before an attack? Who gave the order? And most importantly, who were they protecting? It was no longer just a tragedy. It was a cover-up. People started calling it the setup behind bars. Protesters flooded the streets of Atlanta demanding answers. Justice for King trended worldwide, but the authorities remained silent. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, T.I. was slowly breaking. Days turned into nights, and nights into endless waiting. His phone never stopped ringing, but he didn't answer anyone. Every minute he stood by King's bed, watching the rise and fall of his chest, wondering if this was punishment for something he'd done long ago. The man who once preached strength and pride now whispered prayers under his breath, begging God to give him one more chance to make things right. At one point, reporters caught him saying, "If my son doesn't make it, the world's going to burn." Some called it grief, others called it a warning, because maybe, just maybe, T.I. already knew the truth behind the silence. Then came the messages. Old enemies, rivals and ghosts from his past started posting cryptic lines online. One said, "When you play with fire, it reaches your family." That single post turned the internet upside down. People began connecting dots, bringing up feuds from years ago, bad deals, broken alliances. Some believed King's attack was revenge. Others said it was a message meant for T.I., not his son. And that's when things spiraled out of control. Atlanta's streets filled with anger and grief. Fans marched with posters, chanting "Justice for King." Strangers cried together, united by the pain of a family they didn't even know. This wasn't just about one boy anymore. It was about the cost of fame, the fragility of power, and the danger of silence. Doctors finally revealed the truth about King's injuries. He had been struck multiple times in the head with what they believed was a lock tied inside a sock, a brutal prison weapon. The blows weren't random. They were precise, targeted to kill. This wasn't a fight, it was a hit. Tiny screamed when she heard that, collapsing into T.I.'s arms. Her voice echoed down the hospital hallway. "They wanted to kill my baby." Guards stood silent when questioned. The warden said the cameras malfunctioned. And the longer the silence lasted, the louder the people outside shouted. How can cameras fail in a federal facility? How does justice fail in plain sight? But just when the world thought it had seen it all, a new twist emerged. An anonymous audio file was uploaded online, allegedly recorded inside the prison. A trembling voice said, "We were told to make it look like a fight, but the target was King." No one knew who uploaded it, but within hours it had been shared millions of times. That one line changed everything again, because it confirmed what everyone feared. Someone wanted King dead. Was it revenge, corruption, or something even bigger? A message to T.I. himself. The answers were buried deep, and no one in authority was talking. But one thing was clear, this was no accident. Inside the hospital, King's condition kept changing. One moment his heartbeat was stable. The next, the alarms blared. Doctors rushed in and out, doing everything they could. T.I. hadn't left his side in days. His beard had grown, his voice was hoarse. Tiny prayed silently, holding King's hand, whispering, "You're strong, baby, you'll come back." For a moment, the monitor went flat. Everyone froze, and then a sound. The faintest beep. King's heartbeat returned. Outside, when the news broke that he was still alive, the crowd screamed with relief. People hugged strangers. Fans dropped to their knees in prayer. It was a moment of hope, fragile but real. But even as life returned to that hospital room, the truth behind the attack remained buried under lies. The system stayed silent. The warden refused to release statements. The guards claimed they didn't see anything. And the Harris family lawyer called it the biggest cover-up in state history. Meanwhile, journalists began uncovering names from T.I.'s past. People who had reasons to want revenge. But every time a story surfaced, it disappeared within hours. Someone was pulling strings, controlling the narrative, keeping the truth hidden. And then came the post that stopped the world. An anonymous Instagram account appeared with one chilling line: "The sins of the father fall on the son." It vanished within minutes, but screenshots spread like wildfire. And suddenly everyone started asking, was this really about King? Or had the past finally come for T.I.? By now the Harris family was living in a nightmare. The hospital had turned into a fortress, guarded day and night. Tiny refused to leave, sleeping in the waiting room. T.I. was silent, pacing the halls, consumed by guilt and fury. At one point, a nurse overheard him whisper, "If he wakes up, I'll fix everything I broke." It was the first time anyone had seen him cry. That night, Tiny fainted when doctors said King's brain activity was weakening. T.I. caught her before she hit the floor, holding her tightly, whispering, "Not yet. Don't give up yet." Even the nurses cried watching them. They weren't celebrities anymore. They were just parents, broken, terrified, human. Then a flicker of movement. King's fingers twitched. The monitor beeped faster. Doctors rushed in shouting for silence. And then his heartbeat strengthened. It wasn't a recovery, not yet, but it was life. And in that moment, that was everything. Outside, fans cheered. News channels went live. King Harris shows signs of life. The headline screamed. The city of Atlanta exhaled after days of holding its breath. But as hope returned, so did the fear. Because the people who tried to silence him once might not stop now. T.I. posted a short message online that night. It read, "They tried to break me through my blood, but we don't fall that easy." No photo, no music, just words. And those words became the rallying cry for millions of fans across the world. Because this wasn't just a family tragedy anymore. It had become a symbol of resistance, a father's fight against the system. King remained in recovery, his condition slowly improving. Tiny began smiling again. Riley started posting small updates, asking fans to keep praying. But the scars remained, not just physical, but emotional. Because no one had been held accountable. The truth was still buried, and the silence still spoke louder than any confession ever could. T.I. has stayed mostly quiet since then, but those close to him say he hasn't stopped investigating. He's been meeting with lawyers, digging through records, looking for answers that others tried to hide. Because for him, this isn't about revenge. It's about justice, for his son, for his family, and for every father who's ever stood helplessly on the other side of that ICU glass. Today, the candles outside the hospital have burned out, the crowds have gone home, but the story still lingers, heavy, unfinished, and full of questions. Who ordered the attack? Why did the cameras go dark? And what secret was King about to reveal that made him a target? No one knows, not yet. But one thing is certain, this family will never be the same again. The Harris legacy, built on music and strength, now carries a deeper truth. Fame doesn't protect you from pain, it only makes the world watch when it happens. And as the sun rose over Atlanta that morning, the light hit the hospital windows, soft, golden, and full of quiet promise. Inside that ICU, King Harris was still fighting, still breathing, still proving that even in the darkest moments, hope refuses to die. No one expected what came next, but it changed everything forever.